So before we move to see how merge function works in R, we first need to understand how a lookup, a normal lookup function works in Excel. And I guess most of the people who will be viewing the video right now, or who want to learn like how merge works in R, have come across Excel and the VLOOKUP function in Excel, which is one of the most common functions that's used when anyone starts using Excel, because lookup is the most widely used feature of Excel. We just merge tables based on lookup. So let's just see how VLOOKUP works in Excel for a couple of minutes, and then we'll quickly jump to how merge function works in R. So here I have two tables. The table on the left, you can see it's called df1, like the data frame 1. We'll also use the same nomenclature in R when we move to that segment of the video. In this, we have score of mathematics marks for 10 students. And in df2, we have score of 10 students in science subject. Now I need to make a merge data set of 1 and 2, but the order of IDs will be the same as the one in maths data set. So if you see, the maths data set has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and the science data set has IDs a bit in a erratic manner. So that's just how the data is given to you. You just have to make sure that it all aligns up clearly. So what I'll do is for maths is I'll just type VLOOKUP and I'll look up this ID. I'll have to look up in this table into the second column, and boom. And here we have the mathematics numbers. So what basically I've done is I've just looked up ID 1 in this table and pulled in the value corresponding of that ID on the right hand side. So if you see 1 has 25, 7 has 91, 7 has 91, 10 has 27, 10 has 27. So this just looks up into that table, okay, what ID is there in this column, and then it just pulls up the ID just beside, the value just beside of it. Similarly, in science, if I have to do it, what I'll do is I'll apply VLOOKUP again. This time the data set will be df2, right? Again, I want to look into the second column beside the ID column, and 0 means it should be true, and boom. I'll go and I'll paste as values. Sorry, paste as formulas. And here we have the values, and I'll center align it. Right, so if you see, ID2 has 87 in science data set, ID3 has 19, 3 has 19, 9 has 80. Now, if you were just looking at DF1 and DF2, you would be like, okay, ID9 has 80, here 9 has 5. ID5 has mathematics of 79, but ID5 is like bottom here is at 33. So now with the merged data set, you can just see it all in one row, and you don't need to, refer to two tables or side by side. You just need to look at one table and you'll get all the information related with maths and science subjects. With that said, let's now move to R console and see how merge function works in R. And this will be very, very similar to what we just saw in Excel. So now we'll look merge function in R. And since we have already looked up how VLOOKUP performs in Excel, now we just want to see how the merge function will do a very similar thing in R console without you, writing a VLOOKUP formula in Excel and seeing two data sets by side. You will just have two data frames in R, like we used to import any two data frames, and then we'll just merge it, and then we'll have another df merge that we can look into the R console. So with that, let's get started. Before starting any video, we always clear the console and clear the global environment. So for clearing the console, if you can see, rm list is equal to ls. I'll just run this chunk. It's run, and then I'll do a control plus L to clear the console on the right hand side. You can clearly see. So now the environment and the console is clean. Now we can begin with the next chunk. In the next chunk, I'm just making two random data sets for 15 students. One df1 with students who have maths marks, df2 with students who have science marks, just like we saw in Excel. So there's nothing new. These are just two data sets being created. I'll just quickly run the chunk and show you what these data sets are. So in df1, we have ID and maths, you can clearly see. And in df2, we have ID and science. ID is randomized from 1 to 15, and maths is the same as well. And now we just need to make sure that in the merge one, the ID is static. right? It's not randomized. I mean, when I mean static, I mean in a particular flow, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, right? All right. In the next chunk, we need to see what the structure of the data set is, right? Just because I just showed you like how the data set is, you don't always need to view it like clicking on df1, seeing okay what the okay it's ID and maths. There's a command called structure. You can just view it on your end. So if you just clearly see on the console or on the main panel as well, data frame 1 has 15 observation of two variables like ID and maths, right? First one is ID is an integer, maths is an integer. Similar for structure df2, it's ID is an integer and science is an integer. So we have two variables in df2, two variables in df1, both have a same column called ID. And similarly, the explanation is here as well. Both data frames have a common column called ID, which helps us recognize the unique student. You can relate ID with roll numbers as every student in a class, or a unique roll number which is used to identify them. So, I mean, this is a very basic thing. I mean, you don't have an ID in class. You have a roll call, right? So you can just remember like these 15 students have a same roll call, and they just appeared for a subject called mathematics for an exam, and then a subject called science for an exam, and they have two different reports of marks that they got in 2 different weeks. Now we are just combining them to see, okay, how did they perform in both of them? Now we come to the main crux of this video and the function merge. What we'll do is the command goes like this. You type merge, then you type the first data set, right, which has mathematics marks. And then you type the second data set that you want to add to that data set. So it's like you are joining two data sets, right? But what are you joining on? How can two data sets join where there's nothing common between them? So we tell R that there is something common between them, and that something common is called the column ID. So merge data df1 with df2 by ID. And this command will work because there is a column called ID in both of them, and whatever value R can find across both the data sets with that particular ID will get appended into the new data frame. So let's just run this chunk, and and then see the df merge. So now we can clearly see like ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 9, 10. They are appropriately sorted, and we see the maths 91, science 43 for the first ID. Then for ID 4 we have 78 and 77. Now let's just QC and confirm this as well. Let's just see whether was it the case in maths and for ID 1. So for ID 1 we had 91 in maths, and for ID 1 we had 43 in science. And I think in the merged data set we can see 91 and 43. Let's check one more. Let's check for ID number 7. He had 8 marks in maths and 31 in science. So in df1 we can see ID 7, 8 marks in maths and 31 in science. So there you go. Merge function just by stroke of one command, and by stroke of one column, if it's common, you can just merge the two data frames by one command, and you don't need to write a VLOOKUP function, paste it among all the cells, then do it same for the another column. That will just take you more time if you don't know how to use merge function in R. If you already have a data set that you have imported in R, just use the merge function and you'll be good to go. So I think that was it, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for viewing this. Cheers.